Hi guys. Right, hopefully you can hear me. So let's get straight into this. There was a post put up on Facebook in the fixed wing group about props cutting hands, and Julian raised a question about if anything can be done to try and sort of assist with certain planes if you haven't got a flight controller. So I'll just bring up the desktop and we'll have a look at the original posts. Alright, we got sound now. Sorry about that. Have we got sound now? Yes, excellent. Sorry about that. I don't know why it changed, but okay, right. Start from the beginning. Sorry about that, guys. It had to fuck up at some point. Right, so basically this whole thing is basically Andy already mentioned this on his live chat, but Roddy had an incident where he hit the prop, or sorry, the prop hit him, which obviously we don't really want. And Julian mentioned if it would be possible to set up some sort of switch so that you could throw it, then flick the switch, and then the motor comes on, which is really not the best of ideas, because if you accidentally knock that switch, the motor's just going to go live and you can end up with worse hands than what Roddy's got. So what I've come up with is a method in OpenTX so that you can basically you can have it safely. So you've got a switch to arm like normal. The arm switch won't arm unless the throttle is all the way down, so you've got an extra layer of safety there. And then there's what I'm calling launch assist, which will give you the process is basically you arm it, you enable launch assist, and it will give you a 10-second countdown bleep, and in that 10 seconds you raise the throttle to your cruise throttle for that aircraft. After the 10 seconds there will be another set of beeps which will last 5 seconds, and on the 5th second beep the actual motor will start. So you want to throw it before it gets to 5 seconds, which depending on the plane you're going to have to test and work out what's best for you guys. So maybe 3 seconds, throw it, and if it glides well, it's fine. If not, it does nosedive. But yeah, so basically after the 5th second the motor comes on at a base level, and then a second after that it will ramp up to a next level, and then another second after that it will ramp up to its final level, which will last for 10 seconds. You can adjust all these timings. They're just basic guesses at the moment. Right, to get the first level, what I would suggest is getting a friend to help you hold the plane and get them to slowly raise the throttle until it will just sort of hover in your hand. So basically the thrust is keeping the plane off the ground. Once you get that, use that throttle point as your first setting for when the throttle first kicks in, and then maybe based on what you launch that plane with normally, have the highest throttle level as that, and then the middle one just go in between the two. Right, so let's get back to the OpenTX. I didn't actually get through much, which is good, without a microphone. All I've done is set up the safety arming thing. So for this I've just set up a curve, which I could actually call cut. It's a 2-point curve with both axes being -100. The next thing that we did was set up the logical conditions. This first one checks for the position of the throttle, so it will only activate when it's pretty much all the way down. You may need to raise that a little bit if your gimbals aren't configured or calibrated quite right, but that's usually about right. The next one basically sees if that's active and if itself is active, and that the arm switch is in the armed position. If it is, it stays active. As soon as you disarm, it goes off, and this is the one here that basically will keep the model armed and the throttle active. And to set that up, you set the normal throttle. All you do is change that so it uses logical switch 2. make a duplicate of that, which in here you can right click, but you can sort of click the enter and move down in the Tyrannus or whatever radio. Reverse that so it's not logical switch 2, and then set it to use the throttle cut curve. And when that's all done, I can never tell which position it's in. Where's my... Right. So when that's all done, the output for the throttle will not move until you arm it and lower the throttle. But that didn't work quite right there. So what's going on? I've missed something out. Oh no, it was armed, that's the problem. So that's disarmed. It doesn't do anything. If I try and arm it all the way up, it won't do anything. Something's not right. Oh, that's why it's on input. It should just be on throttle, not input throttle. Sorry. So now it should work. Right, we're armed. We'll disarm. It does nothing. We'll arm it up there. It will do nothing until you lower it, and then it will arm. And then you right. Sorry, that's all working right now. So you got to watch that. If input throttle and throttle are two different things, so be careful with that because it messed me up. But right, so that takes care of the throttle. Are we all good with this so far, or am I going too quickly? I should say, if you're using something like iNav, I wouldn't do this at all. Well, actually, you can do this part, but just don't do the curve part, because if you want to use the menu, the OSD menus, it will stop that working. But this part will still work, and then just do an output on your ARM channel based on the logical switch. But anyway, let's get back to the auto launch part. So, sorry, I worked this out at work and took pictures on my phone. Just don't tell my boss. Right. So the first thing we need to do is make sure that the launch, the arming is correct, and that the launch assist switch is on. So we use an and we want logical condition 2. And then we want our launch switch, which will go for SG. So when this is set, we're actually in that launch mode. So what we do is we set up a timer, and I've done it for 1/10 of a second each way. And what we're going to do is use that timer to increment a variable so we know what second we're on. It's not the most accurate way of doing it, but it's all you can really do in OpenTX as far as I know anyway. So if we go into our flight modes, we can set up a global variable. I'll call this one timer, just sets to 0, leave everything else as standard. And then what we'll do is we'll go into special functions, and when logical 5 is active, we can increment our variable by 1. Okay, so that's the first part. So this is basically our timing system, and this is what we base everything off of. So now what we need to do is add in the actual process of getting the launch going. Sorry, that logical switch 2 should be on the AND switch. Actually, no, it's not 2, is it? It's 4, because it should be that. Okay, right, so the first thing we're going to do is set up our 10-second delay for the launch. Again, you can change these times to whatever you want. So because it'll be 0.2 of a second each time it increments, so 20 would be 10 seconds. So set that up, and that's it for that one. And the next, let's set up another thing on the timer. So this one is when it reaches the 10 seconds. This is the 5-second countdown. So we're going to put that as a 5-second duration. And basically this is the same way for all the rest of the following ones. So when we reach the time on our timer, we just do the next step in the chain. So that will be 30 because it's 5 seconds. That will be 35. And the last one I've got 40. So these two here, I've set a duration of 2 seconds, and the last one 10 seconds. The way we'll set this up is it shouldn't last 2 seconds, but there, as I say, it's not that accurate. So we set this slightly longer than this is supposed to last, so that it doesn't cut out. Because when this one activates, it's going to put in the first level of throttle, so about 60% throttle. And this cuts out too soon, it'll drop down to your cruise throttle. We don't want that. We just want to go from that one to the final. So the next step is to add in what actually happens. So on our first one, logical switch 6, we want to basically play a sound so we know that we need to set our cruise throttle. So I've set that as beep 2, and then just repeat every second. The next one, logical switch 7. Wherever it is. Oh, again, we're just going to play a sound with this. Beep 1, repeat every second. So that's the 5-second countdown. So logical switch 8, we're going to again play a sound. This is when the motor kicks in. So we'll set that up to siren with no repeat. And then the next part is actually setting the outputs for the motor. So we're over on channel 3, and say again we're at 60% throttle as a guess, so we'll put that at 20, because don't forget this is from -100 to +100, so 50% throttle is 0. Logical switch 9, which is the second stage of throttle, override channel 3, we'll set that as 60, and then logical switch 10, which is the last stage of throttle, override channel 3, which is the throttle on AETR, and we'll set that to 100%. The last thing we can do is, it depends whether you want it or not, but you could add elevator compensation as well. So when logical switch 4 is active, you could override channel 2 and add a little bit of up elevator. Again, if you decide to do this, you'll have to tweak it to your particular model. It's, you know, this is just estimates. But also what we need to do is I like to put the most important things at the bottom, because the way the special functions and the logical switches work is stuff at the bottom takes priority over stuff at the top. So what we want to do is say if not logical switch 2, override channel 3 minus 100, and that will make sure that sorry, logical switch 2, that will make sure as soon as we cut that throttle switch, the throttle is dead. So there we go. Look, it should work. I say it should work. Why is it beeping? Oh, sorry, I've missed one out. Another one that we also need at the bottom is so that when we're not on logical switch 4, it overrides the global variable and sets it to 0. Right, let's try this. Don't you just love it when it all works perfectly when you're live? Alright, we're disarmed. Why is that? Why is 6 active? I've obviously missed something. No, I haven't. That will always beep, won't it? And that will need and SG in whichever position we put it in. SG down. Alright, that's armed. So no, that's not quite right. That's going to be and logical switch 4. That's better. Right. So. Right, that's fine. Right, so we're disarmed. So if we arm it now, enable the launch, put our throttle to cruise, you'll see that the elevator's gone up that little 10%. We've had our first warning, and we're now at 100% throttle. In 10 seconds that would go back down to cruise throttle. So start that again just so we can go over it. So you've got your 10 seconds, which should be beep 2. As soon as beep 1 starts, you've got 5 seconds. That's it. And then you had the brief, that seemed a bit too short on here. But you can play with those values. It seems to run at different speeds on different computers. I tried this earlier and that was a lot slower. I would say probably test it on OpenTX rather than on a computer, because that should be much. It's a bit better. Right. So we'll raise our throttle to cruise. Do that 50%-ish. Launch mode. Five-second countdown. Throw the plane. Siren. First set of throttle. Second part of throttle. Full throttle. And 10 seconds it should go down to cruise throttle. Yeah, so it works, but what I would do, and obviously if you cancel it at any point, as soon as you cut the throttle, if you need to, it will kill that launch mode. And what it probably would be worth adding is a greater than as well on the timer. So if you do greater than whatever 60 plus the 10 seconds is, 10 seconds is 20, so if we say 80, and in logical switch 11, you just want an annoyance reminder just to remind you to turn off the launch mode. So just some annoying noise every second or so. But yeah, as I say, it seems to be different on every simulator. So it will work, but you just need to tweak these numbers here just to get the timing right. And I would say do that on the radio, because as I say, on a different computer those values were pretty much spot on, but on this computer it's more powerful and it's running quicker. But yeah, it will work, but as I say, it's the ideal solution would be to have someone help you launch it, or a bungee, or a flight controller. But as I say, it will work, but it's not ideal. I'd personally not use it, but it will work. If you are on your own and you've got something like a Skyhunter and you want to throw it before the prop starts, it's a lot safer than having it on a switch, so as soon as you switch it the motor's on. At least this way you've got some warning. Right, that's going to wrap it up, I think, guys, unless there's any questions. But no. Okay, right, well, I hope you guys found it useful, and hopefully next time I do one of these the microphone will work. That would be brilliant. Alright, thank you for watching. See you later.